Starting now is the panel for StarCraft II, Arcade, Mods, and Blizzard DOTA. Please give a big, warm round of BlizzCon welcome for the members of the StarCraft II team.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Arcade, Mods, and Blizzard DOTA panel. I'm Alex Sun. I'm a designer for StarCraft II. Now, we got a lot to cover today, so we'll be going through it pretty quickly, but we have plenty of time for Q&A afterwards. A lot of the stuff we're going to show you guys isn't necessarily final, so don't be surprised if it changes in release. All right, with that said, let's get started. First, we're going to show you guys the arcade and how to find arcade games. Next, we're going to show you the tools to create arcade games. And finally, we're going to show you Blizzard DOTA, an arcade game that we've been working on. And the part that I'm going to talk to you guys about today is the arcade. So the arcade is a place where you can find games created by the community. In Warcraft 3, we had a lot of examples of great arcade games like Dota All-Stars and Tower Defense. And we really wanted to do our best to support these games. Patch 1.3 was really our first little step in doing so. And now with Heart of the Swarm, we're ready to take the next big step and finally release the arcade. Now, when we do release the arcade, game creators won't be able to sell their content, but this is something we plan to do in the future, and we just hope that if game creators can sell their content, you guys are going to have more fun games to play. And for those that were here last year, the arcade is just the new name for the marketplace. Since a lot of the games are still going to be free, we just felt like arcade fit a little bit better. It sounds more fun, too. So when we're designing the arcade, we had 3 goals in mind. First, we wanted to make sure it was easy to play the quality games. And when I say quality games, I don't mean just the most popular ones. I'm also talking about those hidden gems, the ones that are really fun to play but just haven't had the exposure necessary to make it to the most popular list. Next, we want to make sure you guys can play the games you want to play. Now, playing the most popular games all the time can get a little stale, and you just need a little break. And right now, it's not really easy to do that. The best way is really to get some friends together or go to a chat channel and bug people and try to get them to join your game. There's a lot of improvements we can make here. Next, we wanted to build a foundation so that in the future, we could sell games if we wanted to. So before we preview the arcade, let's take a look at what we have now. So if you start up Wings of Liberty, this is what you see. Right off the bat, it's not really intuitive where you're supposed to go if you want to find these custom games. If you're lucky, you hit multiplayer, and you come to this screen. And on the bottom right, we have custom games at the bottom. And you hit join a game, and you see this. All right, so let's take a look at what we'll have in Heart of the Swarm. So if we look at the top left here, you'll notice that we merged the single player and multiplayer buttons into a single button, StarCraft, and we added an arcade button next to it. This arcade button's a lot easier to find, and you got quick one-click access to it too. All right, so let's click on the arcade and see what we got. Here we go. Much nicer. So let's break this out into each section. Up on the top, we have our featured games, the games that are selected by Blizzard. Over on the right, we have our most popular games, the games that are played the most. And we also added 3 new lists. This is where you're going to find those hidden gems. So first, we have What's Hot. These games, we know that they're good because people are playing them and they're rising in popularity, but they just aren't popular yet. As you probably already noticed, we're also adding a 5-star rating system. You'll be able to rate any game as long as you've played it at least once. And we'll be using these ratings to surface up good games to you guys. For example, Up and Coming. These games, we know that they're good because they have high ratings, but they haven't been played a lot. Next is New and Noteworthy. These games are new, they've been published recently, but those people who have played them, they gave them high ratings, so we're going to surface those up too. All right, so we took a look at how to find games. Now let's take a look at how to get into a game. So here we are back at the arcade, and we're going to click on Blizzard DOTA over on the right. And you see we have a lot of nice information about Blizzard DOTA. And if we click the Join Game button at the bottom, you'll see that we're using the matchmaker to find you guys games. Now, if you're a diamond-level Blizzard DOTA player, you're going to get matched against diamond-level Blizzard DOTA players. Hopefully, it'll be a lot more fun playing against people of your skill level. And while you're waiting in the matchmaker, you can read how to play the game, read the patch notes to see what's changed, and also read reviews or write your own. Now, as I mentioned before, one of our goals was to make sure you can play the games you want to play. And to do that, we're going to be introducing the queuing system. And how this works is, the longer you've been waiting in the queue, the higher chance that your game is going to get filled. And we're going to be filling your games via Fun or Not. Now, we've seen Fun or Not being used thousands of times a day. So ultimately, what this means is, if you wait long enough, your game will get played. And all you had to do was just hit the Join Game button. We're going to do the hard work for you. And speaking of hard work and doing the hard work for you guys, I just want to give a quick shout out to the engineers who are doing the hard work. We have like Alan DeBerry, Ryan Mills, Bill Dewey, Chris Chen, and Brian Cleveland. These are the guys who are making the arcade happen, and they also contributed a lot to the design as well that you see today. Last, all these updates that you guys have seen today, we're going to make them available to everyone. So if you upgraded to Heart of the Swarm, or you stuck with the Wings of Liberty, or if you just downloaded a starter edition, you're going to have access to the arcade. We just want to make sure that you guys have as many people as possible to play with. Thank you very much. And now on to tools to create arcade games.
Hi, my name is Matt Shimberry. I'm a senior software engineer on the StarCraft II team, and I'm here to share with you the improvements that we've made to the StarCraft II editor in Heart of the Swarm. So after Wings of Liberty shipped, we talked to the other developers, looked at the editor, combed through the forums, and identified key areas that we wanted to improve. The first area we knew we had to improve was debugging. Now, we often take for granted the fact that we have a team of programmers and access to the game's source code to help us solve any problems we come across, but obviously you in the community don't have that luxury. That's why we spent a lot of time improving our debugging tools. We also spent a lot of time on custom UI. In Heart of the Swarm, we changed our philosophy on the UI engine and now allow you to change any element you can see on the screen. We also added a new UI editor to go along with that. We also knew that we wanted to deliver even more high-quality cutscenes throughout the entire story mode experience. So to go with that, we added a new, cool cutscene editor. And finally, we went through the entire editor as a whole, fixed many bugs, improved workflow, and just made some quality-of-life improvements to make the entire experience easier. So the first thing I want to show you here is the trigger debug window. This may be familiar to some of you out there because we did have a version of this in Wings of Liberty. But we made a lot of cool improvements for Heart of the Swarm. So what tab we have here is a new tab called the Script Local Calls tab, and it shows you every function and every trigger on your map. In this case, we're looking at Dota. Now, if you look at the top right up here, it's kind of hard to read, but it says total self-only time and total self-children time. These values here are used for performance analysis and basically tell you how long it takes for a function to execute. So I can sort by any of these columns here, and we can see that our two most expensive functions are the Tower AI routine and the Minion AI routine. And we can use this information to help us concentrate our efforts to fix a performance problem. Now, if we wanted to dig deeper to help fix a bug, we can right-click any of these functions here and choose View Script. That brings us to our new Script Calls tab, which is a fully functioning debugger. So like any debugger here, I can place a breakpoint in this while loop, and while paused, I can see our call stack here says that this is a global trigger. Now I can step through line by line, and now let's say that I'm suspicious about this line of code up here for whatever bug I'm trying to solve. What this up here is trying to do is get a list of all heroes in range of the tower. So I can look after executing that line, I can look in the variables watch window down here, and I can see that the value of heroes in range is actually an empty unit group, and hopefully use that information to help us solve whatever bug it is. Next, we have the new UI editor. The UI editor allows you to create and manage all of the new UI in your custom map. In this case, we're still looking at Dota here. But before I continue, you'll see that I have XML code visible up there. We realized that it's often easier to just work with raw XML instead of hunting through the controls in the editor. So we've added a new XML view to the UI editor and data editor modules. So back to the UI editor, I can right-click any of the frames here and choose Preview Frame. that launches. What happened there? That launches the new UI in the game here, and we can see that on the bottom there, that our upgrade buttons are actually misaligned. So in Wings of Liberty, what I would have had to do there was I would have had to find whichever XML file contains these controls, guess at a new position value, save the file out, and reload the map, and probably redo the entire process again when I get the value wrong. Now in Heart of the Swarm, all I have to do is press the new magic hotkey, and that shows us the new in-game UI editor. So the in-game UI editor lets us inspect any value on the screen here. So I can select one of these upgrade buttons, and I can see that I've got the position value and offset and parent information. I also have on the right-hand side here a property sheet that lets us change any value on this element and immediately see the update. But more commonly what I can do is I can just click and drag any element on the screen to move or resize it. So that's what I'll do here. I just click and drag to move the upgrade buttons to where I want, and that puts it in the new position. When I'm happy, I can choose the Save All Frames button over there on the left, and that sends the values back to the editor, and we can see that our new values have been saved. This really helps with iteration time when working on your new custom UI. So finally, I want to show you the new cutscene editor. But first, I have a cool little video to show you.
We're receiving a transmission from the Bucephalus. Oh no. Are you all right, sir? How much did you have to drink tonight, sir? I don't like this. I didn't sign up for this.
So hopefully that gives you an idea of just how much fun you can have with the new cutscene editor. So the cutscene editor allows you to create high-quality cutscenes using existing assets. And that part's really important. That last cutscene that we saw had no new assets other than the fun little song, of course. It is a visual, timeline-based editor designed specifically for artists and level designers. So this is what a cutscene looked like in Wings of Liberty. Now, even though I put this slide together, I still have no idea which cutscene this is. Someone was nice enough to put in the comments that Rainer and Tychus are in this scene, but I have no idea what they're saying, how long this cutscene is, where it takes place, or anything like that. That's because we're looking at the trigger editor. Now, the trigger editor is great at editing logic, but it's not great for editing cutscenes. It's not designed for that. For that, we need a cutscene editor. So the cutscene editor allows you to add and manage all of the objects in your scene, including models, cameras, lights, fog, paths, and a whole bunch of other cool objects. It is visually based and lets you see exactly where every object is at any given moment in time, and even lets you edit directly in the viewport. It has an advanced timeline for sequencing all of your events, including animations, sounds, and other events, and even doing some basic keyframe animation. And finally, it shows you exactly what the cutscene will look like when played back in the game. So here's a quick video of the cutscene editor in action. So we have here the Dota victory cinematic, and there's still some temp art here, so bear with me. And all I have to do here is I can select Arthas and use the manipulator to just move him back and forth. And notice how he interacts with the light there. Now I can also scrub the timeline to see exactly how every object lines up on their paths and their animations. And now let's say I wanted to edit the camera and how it rotates around the scene. I select the yaw property here, add a new key to our new curve editor, and I can move the key around to change the shape of the curve and how it animates. And notice in the background how the camera moves around as I update the shape of the curve. Finally, I can move the cursor back to the beginning of the scene, look through the director camera, which just says to play it back as if it was in the game, and see what my cutscene looks like. Now, one thing that's not obvious here is even though we created the cutscene with Arthas in the first place position, that's not always going to be the case. So using triggers, when the cutscene is playing back in-game, we can substitute different models in different positions based off of gameplay. So finally, I have one more video to share with you here. This next cutscene uses a number of features, including lights such as omni lights, spotlights, environment lights. We use look at to move the characters' heads around and to do some cool bobbing action you'll see. We have attachments to help with positioning. We do animation blending, fading, some cool camera work. Keep in mind as you're watching this that there's absolutely no new assets in here. This is using only assets found in Wings of Liberty, and you can even call this programmer art because I didn't even involve an animator when creating this. So without further ado, I give you a BlizzCon 2011 exclusive sneak peek at the cinematic ending of Heart of the Swarm. Thank you. And now I give you Rick.
Hi, I'm Rick Gilliland. I help the awesome artists on StarCraft II make even more awesome art. So, PC gaming has a rich history of mod making. We've seen the editor improvements and arcade to show our commitment to helping the mod scene flourish. We know our players are talented. We've seen maps like Defense of the Ancients and Tower Defense spawn entirely new styles of games. And to help the mod scene really take it to the next level, we're releasing the art tools for StarCraft II. You guys are awesome. So, I'm really nervous. With the art tools, you're going to be able to make entirely custom models. This means that you can make anything as grand as a total conversion to fill that minor art gap in your map. We've seen a really impressive map for StarCraft II that clones StarCraft Brood War, down to like weird AI problems with Zerglings. It's great. But at the end of the day, they still had to rip the top off the Immortal to make a Dragoon. And we'd really, really love for you to just be able to make that Dragoon. Also, we've seen models from World of Warcraft and Warcraft 3 pop up in StarCraft II. We know you guys have ways of getting them in there, but sometimes they'll rip apart or the textures will get corrupt, or in the worst case, other models around them start going crazy. With the real art tools, the same art tools we used to ship Wings of Liberty and are currently using to build Heart of the Swarm, there are going to be fewer bugs. It's going to have a better play experience. It's going to be easier to make, and we're going to be able to support it better. Together, we're going to be making better mods. So the package we're delivering includes an exporter for 3D Studio Max. With this exporter, yeah, we've been working on it a long time. So, with this exporter, you're going to be able to make custom units, custom buildings, custom doodads. If you want, you can do foliage and spell effects. Do a whole new thing other than Psystorm. If you're daring enough, you can even make custom cliffs for your entirely custom tile set. This exporter links directly with the cutscene editor that Matt showed earlier. So you're going to be able to export your model, instantly see your changes. And you can see what it's going to look like exactly in-game in different lightings on different tile sets without having to load up your map. This is a big system, so we're providing more documentation. This documentation is going to include everything from tutorials to detailed tool breakdowns. And it's going to go even as far as covering systems that are maybe a bit opaque right now, like texture replacement in the animation prop system. Like I said, it's an intricate system. We know we're not going to be able to cover everything, even with good documentation. So we're going to provide example files. We're still locking down exactly what, but one of everything as best we can. Things from like a street sign that you knock over with physics to like a 3D UI that comes in, or big stompy mechs. Things we love on StarCraft. So now that we know roughly what this is going to include, let's take a whirlwind tour through the StarCraft II art tools. I've opened up 3D Studio Max here, and we're going to go to our example tutorial asset. This is our water bat, if many of you are Tasteless fans. So we're going to show you how to take this from a simple gray mesh, the simplest thing possible, to a living, breathing unit in StarCraft II. We'll show you how to set up the data so he'll be able to attack enemy units and heal your own buildings, set up the materials so it lives correctly in the world. We'll go through and set up the attachment points and the selection volumes so your unit is indistinguishable from one of ours in performance and selection. We'll even go through how to set up the animations to work correctly so you know what you're doing from both sides, either the art creation or the map making, when you call like a stand ready cover. Right? That's a weird name, man. And so We'll go through everything, even like making it so you can lay down the insult when you want to slash a dance. So, maybe you learn better from example and not tutorials. So let's open up everyone's favorite lab tech, Stepman, here. So with example files, you can see how we set them up. So you'll be able to know how we set up a story mode asset in our high-quality shaders, or maybe you just want to fool around and see what it's like to do some modeling. So in this case, Stepman's been drinking maybe a few too many of those Blizz Colas around his bandolier. We'll fatten him up, and the only polite thing to do is make sure his clothes at least still fit. So we'll open up the export floater here, which is one of our tools, and kick it over to the cutscene editor. I've preloaded it with the old Stepman for comparison, and we can see pretty soon that it's going to flag us down to say, hey, this high-quality asset with all sorts of stuff is ready to go. So this setup works really well if you've got two monitors. That's what we do in-house. You can just have it on the side and just keep sending it over and see what it looks like. He's fat. Awesome. We did it. So maybe you're more creative, and you want to do something entirely your own, like this sweet tomatoing I've got here. So we're still hammering out the details, but the basics of it are you export it into your mod, and then you fire up StarCraft II. So I'm going to spare you the load of the map, but we're going to jump into something I call the Salad Temple. And we can see that there's so many tomatolings just pulsing with tomatoey goodness. They live and walk around just like any other unit in StarCraft II. And we look down, and we see there's some Marines standing at the edge of our creep. How dare they? So we'll send in the tomatolings to season them up, and our Zerglings are hungry for battle, so they're going to charge in. They're going to go, nom, 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 nom. Delicious. These tomatolings have done exactly what we wanted them to do. They've showed us how to use the StarCraft II art tools, and they've taken out some Marines while they're at it. So I'm glad they've taken their bow. So we're delivering a lot of power with the StarCraft II art tools, and we're looking forward to seeing you go forth and make awesome experience. Make something epic, just like we love to do here at Blizzard. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to three of Blizzard's awesome experience makers, Johnny Ebert, Richard Koo, and Justin Clinshoot.
Hey everybody, I'm Johnny Ebert. I'm a senior designer on Heart of the Swarm. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Blizzard DOTA. So we've seen a lot of really cool stuff so far. And we're going to show you how we combined it all to make Blizzard DOTA. So those of you who've had a chance to play it out on the show floor may have noticed that the Blizzard DOTA we're showing this year is entirely different than the Blizzard DOTA we showed last year. And there's a very good reason for that. We really liked what we had last year, but we sat down and we're like, have we really questioned some of the assumptions about the genre? Because we're all huge fans of it, and we're like, well, it's perfect. Let's just make it. But we're like, well, is there anything we can improve? Because that's what we're about at Blizzard. So we decided we wanted to attack it from 5 different angles. And those of you who have followed our design philosophy over the years will see a lot of Blizzard's core design values listed behind me. So let's start with fixing the fantasy. The fantasy is a very compelling one. I'm going to play a hero that joins this massive battle. I'm going to push the battle line forward. I'm going to see another hero. We're going to have this epic duel. It's going to be a major tipping point. It's going to be so awesome. Then you get in the game. And the fantasy, the optimal way to play is the exact opposite of the fantasy. You're supposed to hide under your tower. So you'll start attacking minions aggressively, and people will be like, no, you idiot. You run back and forth. And then when that right moment hits, you get the last hit in. And then you stay right under your tower, so you lure the people out of position, and someone can come down for the gank. It's cool. We all love playing it, but it's not very intuitive. So we thought, is there anything we could do to improve that? So we decided we wanted to attack this in a couple ways. First, we wanted to reward early aggression. And we've done that in a couple of ways. Towers are much softer targets than they are in traditional Dota games. So you can actually kill a tower fairly early and get a big bonus for your team. You'll also notice that bar right under the tower. That's the ammunition. We've given towers a limited amount of ammunition, and it slowly regenerates over time. So if you need to use your tower for some protection, and then you push the battle line away for a while, it'll regenerate. But if you do like Stitches is doing here in this video, if you lean on your tower too much, you're going to see, first the minions are doing a lot of damage to the tower, but you also see it's about to run out of ammunition, so it'll actually power down. So now Stitches is in a lot of trouble. Not only is he going to have to run off and not get killed, he's lost a tower very early in the game, and that's going to give the other team a very large advantage. The other thing we wanted to do is we wanted to make the fighting along the battle line more intuitive. So I talked earlier about last hitting. we actually played a couple of games with no last hitting at all. And something was definitely missing. So we asked ourselves, what do we like about last hitting? Well, first, it adds a lot of tension. You're having to time something. You're kind of sitting on the edge of your seat. You're kind of running in and out. There's a lot of positional gameplay. You have to kind of keep in mind where your opponent is. Those are very good things. So we're like, is there a way we could get that in a more intuitive way that makes more sense? So we came up with the idea of the health globe. So you see that flag bearer in the middle of this picture here. He has this globe over his head. If you kill him, he'll drop a globe that you can pick up that'll give you a pretty decent chunk of your health and mana back. And what we like about this is it still has that tension, it has that positional gameplay, you have to time it well, but it also makes a lot more sense because you understand why you're winning or losing. If you're getting your globes and denying the enemy, you'll have a lot more health and mana. And it'll be pretty obvious why. Whereas like if you're getting last hit and you're getting this gold bonus, it's going to be several minutes into the game, so there's less of that cause of an effect.
Hello. It's my turn to speak. Okay, so one of the opportunities that we saw that we could improve Blizzard Dota was the concept of boots. So there comes a certain point in Dota-style games where heroes have to buy boots. There's not a lot of gameplay to it. If you don't have boots, you get chased down by heroes with boots. And later on, if you don't improve your boots, you get chased down by heroes with the better boots. We figured that gameplay gets kind of like some of the back-and-forth gameplay that you want, but we thought we could do it a little bit better. So in Blizzard Dota, we introduced the concept of mounts. So you can see here, our heroes are preparing to go into battle. After a brief 2-second channel time, they actually will mount up. As you can see, while mounted, the heroes actually move a lot faster. This gets you the gameplay of what boots get you as far as strategic value goes, because you can respond to threats, you can get to places a lot faster. But it's actually a lot easier to respond to like a lane being pushed. It also gets you into places that the enemy would not expect. Another thing that you can also do with mounts is chase down that enemy hero that's trying to get away, and then you can perform the finishing blow.
So we've talked about ways we're trying to fix the fantasy. Let's talk about another thing that's very near and dear to our hearts at Blizzard. It's making our game easy to learn and difficult to master. So we're all huge fans, and none of us wanted to change anything at first. But then we kind of asked ourselves, like, how do you play Dota? Walk me through it. And we're like, well, it's really easy. First, you go to the wiki, you pick a hero you like, and you go to the wiki page. And that hero is going to have 3 or 4 builds. And then of that, you pick the build that sounds kind of cool. It's going to have 2 or 3 item builds, so you pick your item build. And then if he's a jungler, he has 1 or 2 jungling patterns he's going to use. And so you're sitting there with your laptop next to your PC, and you're kind of reading back and forth. And we're like, really? You know, and it's really cool that we're teaching kids the value of studying hard, for a test and stuff. But it doesn't make for very compelling gameplay. So we always felt at Blizzard like the complexity and the depth needs to be on the back end. I could spend 3 minutes explaining to you how to play chess. You could spend a lifetime never mastering it. That's where the depth belongs, in the back end. So we've decided we needed to kind of attack this in a couple of ways. The first one was the stats. The stats in traditional Dota games, it's on par in complexity with something like World of Warcraft. And it works really well in a game like World of Warcraft because you have like 100 hours or way more to kind of ease into it. You can sit in Dalaran, you can sit in Stormwind, you can browse the auction house, you can try different things on, you can hit your targeting dummy, learn your rotation. Dota, not so much. You have like 30 seconds maybe to pick your item, get out to the battlefield, a lot going on. So we thought we needed to kind of reduce the stats to their essence. And what we kind of settled on were health, damage, and mastery. Mastery is a very simple stat. It just lowers the cooldown on your abilities, gives you some extra mana. And we got rid of what we call hidden stats, or stats that make you do math. Armor, kind of cool, but it's really just a hidden form of health that's making you do math in your head. Attack speed, very similar, very hidden form of damage. I do 70 damage, he does 50 damage, I'm going to kill him. Oh wait, his attack speed is 3 times faster than me. I forgot to carry the 1, I lose. Not so cool.
So we decided to also do another overhaul on a major system, which is items. And as Johnny was talking about earlier, I mean, this system works really well for the kind of game that Dota style is trying to make. But after a while, it's gotten a little bit complicated because now you have to have tabs to sort of navigate through, like the type of item that you want to find. And then you have to memorize that, like, if I have this axe and I have this sword and I spend some money, I get this really cool axe sword, but it's something that you're going to have to learn over time. So for Blizzard Dota, we decided to explore a simpler direction. So what we did for Blizzard Dota is that we actually simplified the number of items so that they can all be displayed on a single page. And then, as you can see in the screenshot, we actually list out what all the items do, so it's very easy to find what you want. With the items that we have left over, we felt that they offered the most gameplay, and we've also gotten rid of the concept of recipes. Instead of just simply getting this item and spending money to get what you want, you just click on the item, and if you have enough money, and if it's an item that you can upgrade, you just spend money, and now you have a better version of the item. The next thing that we wanted to talk about as far as remaking Blizzard Dota was approaching our hero design a little differently so that we can offer you guys a more epic hero list. One of the really cool things about our trans-dimensional pocket universe that happens to take place in Cyberworld is that there aren't any real rules as to why certain heroes could be in here and why certain heroes aren't. So we're allowed to use heroes from all of our Blizzard universes, whether it's like Arthas and Uther from Warcraft, Zeratul from StarCraft II, or StarCraft, or Witch Doctor from Diablo. After we came up with a really long list of heroes, we decided to apply some RTS design philosophy to sort of figure out what those hero roles are and what those roles do. The first of those hero roles is actually the tank. Now these guys are like the beefcake, frontline warriors. They've got a lot of health. They have a lot of really strong self-sustaining abilities. Like Stitches can devour on a minion and heal himself while dealing damage to the minion. These guys play very sticky because they have very strong crowd control abilities and they have a lot of HP and they generally have some good AOE abilities. So if you let them hang around in your line too much, they're just going to wear you down. The second class is actually the DPS class. Now these guys are designed for assassination and for ganking. They have the highest burst damage out of all the heroes in the entire game, and they also have really strong positioning skills, so they can really put the hurt on the enemy if they get into the right spot at the right time. However, they are very, very squishy, meaning that if they get focused down, they just drop like flies. So they really rely on the tank to sort of provide that frontline defense so that they can really put the hurt on. The third type of class is actually support. As the name implies, these guys offer a lot of support for all of the heroes on the battlefield. They dispense out invaluable buffs and healing that really help a team maintain its tempo. One of the really cool things about support heroes is that when we changed around our game system so that we removed last hit, support heroes no longer were penalized for playing passively in the lane because that's sort of what they do. They need to sort of stick and move throughout and provide healing where it's necessary. But they're not getting, they're actually getting all the money for just participating in the battle. And it sort of feeds into our concept of having more team play oriented gameplay that Johnny will talk about later. The final hero class that we felt that we needed for Blizzard Dota kind of just made sense when we were designing it, and that's the concept of a siege hero. So at the end of the day, Dota is a game about destroying the enemy base. Why not have a hero that's just completely dedicated to destroying the enemy base? A lot of these siege heroes, actually all the siege heroes, have abilities that outrange towers, and if left unchecked, a single siege hero can push a lane from the beginning all the way to the end. So it really puts the pressure on the enemy to respond quickly or they're going to lose. We really feel like this is a fun, sort of heroic opportunity for people that want to play that way. So I've talked a little bit about siege heroes. Let's see one in action. This is Warfield is actually sieging up, and now you can see his auto attack is actually outranging the tower. As the minions come in close, he's going to drop a bunch of mines and lay down a bunch of suppressive firepower that do a lot of very low DPS, but it's AoE effects, so it's great against minions. As you can see here, Warfield's minions are actually coming up, but Warfield actually didn't really need it. He can actually take out this tower all by himself. If there were DPS meters in Blizzard Dota, these guys would be topping the charts all the time. The final thing, I'm sure many of you who are familiar with Blizzard design philosophy, is that we decided to design our heroes with core game mechanics that we didn't want to duplicate from one hero to another. All the heroes are going to have signature abilities that will make them stand out from the rest, and we really want to put a lot of tender love and care into each and every one of our heroes.
So another thing we wanted to do is we wanted to create a more exciting metagame, and the cue we took from that was StarCraft II. And what we love about StarCraft II is the metagame is varied. You have short games, medium games, long games. You have games where you die to dirty tricks. I mean, we've all been 7-pooled by an intrepid Zergling player, and first time it happens, we're angry. We're like, this is not the game Dustin Browder designed. You should be ashamed of yourself, sir. But then you're like, well, maybe I should try it. And then you try it to somebody, like, haha, this is kind of cool, you know. So it adds depth, you know. The timing pushes like a void rush, really cool. We wanted to try to add that to Blizzard Dota. We want games to end very quickly at the 10-minute mark or at the 20-minute mark, 30-minute mark, multiple ways to win. Now, one way we're trying to do this is we're trying to introduce the concept of territory control. You have that river running across the map, divides it very evenly, towers kind of establish some control for you. You have those vast swaths of jungles that are no man's land. Well, we thought, what if we could put something in there that you could fight over, that you could capture, that would help your cause? So we put these merc camps, ogre merc camps out in the jungle. So you come out to a merc camp, and if you attack the ogres in the camp, they'll fight back. Usually it's in the mid-game. You need a couple of teammates to help you out with this. I'm kind of cheating here. And then once the ogres are dead, you'll see you start capturing the totem to the right. And then once the totem's captured, you see the ogres are very impressed with your fighting prowess. They're going to join your cause. Now, the enemy can come back and capture this from you, but when you capture it, you'll see one melee minion and one ranged minion have been replaced by ogres. And they're much tougher. You see the ranged ogre in the back is actually doing area of effect damage. So what would normally be a very even fight here is actually becomes very lopsided just with one camp. So if you capture a couple of these camps and the enemy doesn't respond, the game's going to start to end very quickly. Towers are going to get knocked down, lanes are going to get swept, you're going to have to respond, and it's going to spark a lot of really cool group fights.
So another one of the things that we wanted to make a more exciting moment in our game was the concept of the big ass-kicking boss that at a certain point in the game, a bunch of high-level heroes go out and attack, and when you kill the enemy, like, you get some kind of buff and you get some kind of item, and it sort of gets the gameplay that you want, but it's a lot of like power without gameplay. So we decided to do something a little bit more interesting for our game. Here you can see is our Stone Zealot, which I believe that our artists actually want to change into some like mechanical cyber ninja, but that's totally up to them. I mean, I kind of like the Stone Zealot. So you can see here it actually takes our 3 high-level heroes quite a long time to destroy this Stone Zealot, and it's still a lot of commitment in that they have to stay out of the lanes. However, the difference is though that when you actually kill it, he thinks that you're awesome. And then he restores all of his health, and he actually walks down the lane to go and fight for you. Now, you can imagine at this point that the enemy is kind of shaking in their boots because there's a global announcement, and you can see this like red skull moving down the minimap, and so it really just forces a team fight. And then this guy, like, he kicks a lot of ass. I mean, like, you fought him earlier, so you kind of see what he does. Like, he actually outranges, like, minions and stuff. And by himself, he actually outranges towers. If the enemy team does not respond in time, you know, they're going to be pushed all the way back to their tower. We think that this is a more exciting gameplay than just getting a buff.
Final thing we're trying to do is we're trying to spice up the metagame by offering multiple maps. Initially, we were a little uneasy about this one. We'd kind of come to see the Dota map was always the same for a reason. It's like the football field or the basketball court. You don't change the shape of the field. You don't change the dimensions. But we started playing around with different maps, and we finally, you know, a lot of them really sucked at first, as you might expect. But you know, one day we came up with this design, and you know, we're not entirely happy with it. But what happened was we kind of had fun, and then we'd forgotten to update the loading screen image. It had the old map, so we were playing it again the next day, and we're all sitting in the same room, and we saw the old map's image come up, and there was like all these groans around the room, like, "Oh man, I got to play the old map." And suddenly, you know, the collective light bulb went off in our head, because like, hey, yeah, this is a really good angle to pursue. We need to have multiple maps. Game's still going to feel very familiar. It's going to feel like Dota. But you're going to get the change in timing, you're going to get change in strategies, you're going to get change in tempo.
Oh, and to sort of dogpile on that concept, I was actually one of the people that was very against the idea of making multiple maps. But when I was talking to one of our designers, Matt Cooper, about it, he actually summed it up really nicely. And, I mean, he put it this way, like, we're making Blizzard Dota with multiple maps in mind. So all of these maps are going to still play like Dota, but there's going to be a lot of cool variations in the gameplay itself. I mean, Johnny talked about like having multiple lanes. I mean, maybe you can have 4 lanes, maybe you can have 2 lanes, but what if you vary up the number of army nodes? What if you vary up where the Stone Zealot position is? What if you vary up where the actual base is? What if you spawn in a different location than where your base is? I mean, there's a lot of possibilities out there. I mean, all of us have played on, Lost Temple like 10, 50, 100 times, but after the 100th time, it gets a little bit boring. We've got this really awesome StarCraft II map editor that lets us iterate through a lot of different maps very quickly, and we've got a lot of collective RTS map design, so we can really try a lot of different concepts. The final thing that I'd like to add is that one of the cool things about making multiple maps, it lets us explore a lot of potential different locations. Maybe you're fighting, on Core Hall. Maybe you're fighting in Tristram. Maybe you're actually fighting in Onyxia's lair, and Onyxia is actually your big bad boss that you fight, and when you fight her, she actually fights for you.
So the final thing we really felt we had to attack, and maybe this one was the most important, was kind of what the genre has become really famous for, which is just the rage, the pure rage you get from your teammates, right? And, and I think it's really easy to kind of hand wave it and just assume that Dota players tend to be chaotic evil, and that's the end of it. But we thought, well, maybe we need to kind of take responsibility as designers. And is there anything we're doing to kind of inflame them or create unnecessary tension? So the first thing we decided to attack was game length. Like the typical genre game lasts anywhere from 45 minutes to 90 minutes. So if one of your teammates is doing very poorly and you just get to play over your lunch hour, your lunch hour is gone, and you're probably a half hour in. So the stakes are way higher. You're very angry. So we've tried to really lower the average game length, and we've gotten it to about an average internally. We have no idea what's going to happen when you guys get a hold of it, but internally we've gotten our average game length to about 20 minutes, and it feels really good. We had some that have ended as soon as 10 minutes, and it doesn't feel bad. It feels really decisive. You're like, oh, okay, we kind of messed that up. It's over, and the pain is ended quickly. Some of our more epic ones last maybe like 30 minutes, but again, that feels kind of cool, feels kind of epic. But the thing is, I can get a couple in over my lunch hour. I can get a couple in when I get home before dinner. That's kind of what we're going for. The other thing was trying to remove very obvious conflict points. I mean, the obvious one is the carry. You don't have to be a psychologist. If you walk into a group, it's like, hey, okay, one of you gets to be the superstar. The rest of you are his stooges. Who wants to be the superstar? Who wants to be the superstar? A lot of hands are going to go up, right? And even if you don't want the pressure of being the superstar, you kind of resent the fact that there's a superstar. And I think we've all been trapped in that score screen chat room with super special guy who went 20-0, and he's getting a little cranky that we're all not telling him how amazing he is because he went 20-0 and we went 7-5. It's just a very bad design. So one of the things we fixed earlier is making towers much softer targets kind of fixed this for us. Now what happens is if I'm the guy in a solo in a lane, yeah, I'll get experience a little faster, I'll get more gold, but the other thing is the other team's like, hey, there's a guy alone by himself in a lane. Let's double team him. Let's try to get that tower down very quickly. So now, the solo guy actually has a lot of pressure now. It's kind of it's an important role, but it's not this super glorious superstar role. It's kind of like being a nose tackle in football. You're at the bottom of the pile a lot, but you're kind of like helping hold the battle line. The other thing we're trying to do is get rid of the concept of kills, deaths, and assists. It's just a horrible, horrible way to score this game. Imagine like if in the Dungeon Finder in WoW, the guy that got the last hit on every mob got all the loot and the experience. It would be a train wreck. You'd be at each other's throats. I mean, you're kind of at each other's throats sometimes to begin with, but yeah, it's something like that. It's insanity. So we got rid of the concept of kills, deaths, and assists, and we just replaced it with a takedown. 3 of us kill one guy. It doesn't matter who got the last hit, because that's really not important if you think about it. All 3 of us get a takedown. The experience and the gold, they're shared equally. And what it does is it kind of removes the individualism that the game is really kind of putting up front. And it's putting it away from a hardcore individual concept to a hardcore team concept. And we know, those of us that have played WoW, the hardcore team concept can be just as hardcore, if not more hardcore than the hardcore individual concept. But it's more gratifying, it's more exciting, because you're coming together as a team, and you're not really focused on who got the last hit or who got the most kills. You're focused on getting that enemy core down. And the final thing we really love about this is it allows us to reward unselfish play. So this is Uther. Now, when we first designed Uther couldn't kill you if you tried to help him kill you. That's how little damage he does. But what is awesome about Uther is he can really tip a team fight. He can really keep people alive. And when we first designed him, there were people in the room like, no one's going to play that. No, this game's about killing people. If I can't kill people, no, stupid. And we're like, well, let's try it. No, stupid. And but once we kind of started adding these more team-oriented dynamics, like Rich mentioned earlier, we got rid of last hitting. We got rid of last hitting on heroes. He became one of the most popular heroes because, wow, he's like a franchise player. He's if you don't have an Uther or a Thrall on your team, man, you got to work way harder to stay alive in a group fight. If you get focus fired, oh man, it's ugly. So being able to kind of like make the heroes more distinct was a really nice side benefit, and to allow people to like play support, because that's a really fun role to play. So closing thoughts. It's out there on the show floor. What's out there? We're not finished yet. We're still kind of questioning things. We're still attacking some of these things. So what you see today may not be what you see when the beta comes out. But we really love you guys to go out and try it. We really love to hear your thoughts. And most importantly, we're really excited to see what you guys can create when you get a hold of these mod tools we've covered today.
And as a shameless plug, half an hour after this panel ends, the StarCraft II art team is actually going to be holding a panel to sort of preview some of the hero concepts that we are thinking of using for our heroes. And now we'd like to open up to Q&A. I'm not sure where the microphones are, but they're somewhere back there. Feel free to ask about any of the topics that we covered today, whether it's the new arcade, the cutscene editor, and the new art tools, or Blizzard DOTA.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey guys, my name is Luke. I'm a big Dota player, so what I'm wondering is what about Blizzard Dota is going to make it compete with all of the already well-established Dota franchises out there, like Han, Dota 2 is going to be out, and League of Legends?
Well, I kind of just spent 20 minutes talking about that, but yeah, well, I guess what we're kind of going for.
What one thing is going to make this game the game to play Dota?
I guess the fact that it's just going to be way more intuitive, it's going to make a lot more sense to people, and you're going to be able to really focus on the gameplay itself rather than the wiki page next to your computer, if I had to guess.
I'm going to say that it gives you an opportunity to play Arthas and kick Kerrigan's ass. Like that's my reason.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Hi. So I had a chance to play the build that you guys have out on the show floor, and I think it's a great opportunity for people who haven't tried the genre to get into it. The simplicity is just really great. Are you concerned, though, that the lack of an immediate depth to the game is going to scare away veterans of the game mode, like existing versions of it?
Definitely. I mean, at Blizzard, we always design for the hardcore first. And we kind of feel like Dota is already there. There is a very hardcore game. So what we've been really working at is just kind of like simplifying the learning curve. I don't think you're going to have to play more than a couple of games when you start to see the depth that's still there.
Hey, I had a question about Dota. So I've had a lot of games ruined by people leaving. Is there going to be any reconnect feature or anything to punish people who leave your game?
Eventually, we do want to try to get reconnect into not just Dota, but StarCraft 2 in general. That probably won't make ship. However, it will come in the future. As far as punishing leavers, we are working on something that will hopefully discourage people from leaving, and it will affect their overall BattleNet status.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to add to that as well. Since the games are so short, they're like 10 to 20 minutes, leavers become less of a problem. Like if you're stuck in a game where it's going to be an hour before you can actually quit, you're going to want to leave, but 10 to 20 minutes, you'll stick around and just wait for the game to end.
Hey, my question is in regards to the mod tools. You showed like tomato links and like custom units, but I noticed that they were still called banelings. Is there a way to, in like the editors, change the name of said units?
Actually,
questions.
Yeah, so the art tools are just a tool to take any art you make into StarCraft 2, but then you can use the data editor to hook up that art to any new unit you want. So basically, you just create a new unit, you would call it Tomato Ling, and then you just link up that new art to that unit.
Cool, thanks.
Hi guys, my name's Keith. I have a question about StarCraft 2 custom maps in general. In Warcraft 3, we saw you could just create a map, people could download it, then they could host it, and they'd filter through. And eventually, every time, every refresh, you get a new list, etc. But in StarCraft 2, it's all Blizzard popular maps that are on the first 2 pages or so. Are there any changes to get map developers more screen time when they come out with a new map or anything?
Yeah, so to address that problem, we're adding that queuing system that I was talking about. If you're the map creator, you can just host one of your games, and people will automatically join your game via fun or not if you wait there long enough.
Okay. All right, thank you.
No problem.
Hey guys, I had a question. When the new exporter to 3DS is going to come out, and the texture compatibility between StarCraft and 3DS?
So the exporter is roughly covariant with Heart of the Swarm. We plan that. We're anticipating them to be near each other. For the texture compatibility between 3D Studio Max and game, we use a custom bitmap in 3D Studio Max that you will bind a regular TGA to, and it will get automatically converted to DDS of the proper type for DXN or regular DXT5 compression automatically. Our artists don't worry about it. You shouldn't have to.
So no mental ray or anything?
We do not support the native 3D Studio Max bitmaps in StarCraft II materials, and there are some other issues trying to render StarCraft II materials as mental ray things. Mental ray's overall hook can work in certain cases.
Thank you.
I'd like to take this chance to thank you for finally releasing something for 3DS Max. I mean, we've had the third-party tool from the community, and yeah, it does a good job, but you can't do things like barrel roll or Terratron, breakdancing. It just doesn't work. But my question is this. So if we create a content, let's say a Wargaming Marine as opposed to a Tauren Marine, there's no real central way to pull that down. So you can't go out and say, oh, I want a custom unit. But there's no way, no central site, no central repository to go out and pull some. So is there something like that you're thinking of setting up, perhaps?
Honestly, I don't think we've had a discussion about that, but that sounds like an awesome idea, and should probably take it back and talk to people about it.
Well, yes, I can tell you we have thought about it, but right now we're just primarily trying to get the arcade set up so that you can find custom games to play. There's a lot of improvements we can make there. Once we get that established, we'll definitely talk about that, and hopefully we'll have something in the future, but no promises.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. I wanted to know, with you planning on adding so many awesome epic characters, what's the odds of you adding, say, blank Paladin hero that I can then take my Paladin and put him in Dota? Like he'll always have the same abilities as all the other people's or something like that.
Well, we're really just going for these iconic Blizzard heroes for Dota. But one thing we are going to let you do is we're talking about different ways that you can customize how your hero looks inside of Dota. So already out on the floor, when you have Uther, you can change, just what color that he appears for you. However, we can do things with skins, different looking mounts, and all sorts of things. So you do have that ability to customize it how you want. But we're going to stick with iconic Blizzard heroes.
Thank you.
So another question about heroes. I was wondering if you're going to release more heroes or add more heroes to the mod as time goes on. Are you guys going to keep working on it and bring in new ones, or is this it? It's set?
No, this is not 10. Actually, what you're seeing on the show floor right now is only, I think it's like 12 heroes. We actually have 16 in our internal build, and we're constantly working on more. Like, for instance, like, I mean, I can say this hero with confidence, but, I mean, you saw Illidan in actually one of Matt Shimbari's videos, and you also saw, like, the Murloc Marine in the Sizzle trailer. I mean, that's just some of the examples of heroes that we plan to release. In the future, we plan to also, like, ship more.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, so with StarCraft II editor, we're talking about the cutscene editor and the new art. In terms of map size, are these going to dramatically increase your limit, or will they not actually count to your total map size you have on Battle.net?
So cutscene files are actually very small. They're just XML files. So I really, even a very large cutscene, if it has a lot of assets in it, it's not adding more than, say, a couple K to describe what the cutscene is. It doesn't add to the art itself, because the art's already in the mod, and that's part of the dependency. So it doesn't add much to the map itself.
Hi, so I haven't seen Blizzard address this yet. Are there currently plans to increase the script size limit for maps?
I hope so, because I like playing Mafia.
Yeah.
We have time for a few more questions.
Yeah, I was wondering, have you ever considered the possibility of maybe releasing Blizzard DOTA as its own independent game, standalone, like independent from StarCraft II?
Well, we are releasing it with the starter edition, so in a lot of ways that kind of does do that. But our goal is to get it into the hands of as many people as possible and make the barrier for entry as low as possible. So yeah, right now we're focused really hard on just making it awesome, but yeah, that's definitely one of our goals.
All right, thank you.
Hey, you talked a little bit about the 3ds Max exporter, and this may be a little selfish, but do you have any plans for a similar exporter for Maya?
So it's unlikely that we'll support Maya in the same way we support 3D Studio Max. We put a lot of effort into it, and you can see really cool things like the live interaction with the editor. That's a lot of work, and it's a lot of effort to make it happen, and it's unlikely we'll be able to do it for both, so I'm quite sorry.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is about how far into Blizzard's franchises are you going to go for Blizzard DOTA? Are we going to see some characters like the Lost Vikings, Blackthorn, or maybe even Wirt from Diablo 1?
If you ask our director, Sammy, he wants to have a Camaro driving around on the battlefield. He wants to see Blackthorn. He wants to see Lost Vikings as like an interchangeable hero. So the sky's the limit. I mean, we're not limiting ourselves to like just the three major universes. We could go back as far as Blackthorn. So the answer is yes, as far as you think.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And if we don't get Wirt in there, we'll make sure to get his leg in there.
We have time for one more question.
Hi. Do you guys plan on implementing the ability to attach 3D portraits or 3D models directly to dialogues using your new UI system?
So I don't know exactly the details on that, but we made a lot of changes to UI. Everything that you saw in the various Dota videos and the screenshot that I had up there, that's all done using our new UI engine. So that specific question, I'm not a UI programmer myself. I don't know the answer to that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's possible. We've done a lot of changes and a lot of cool improvements to the UI system.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
So it doesn't seem like jungling is really viable on this Dota map. I like it so I'm always Mia. People always have to worry about me, instill the fear into everybody else. But it seems like you just have to capture the little peon area practically, and then you're good to go. You go back to laning. Is there going to be any way that you can always constantly have that one Mia person?
Totally. I'm not sure people have figured this out on the floor yet, but the jungle camps actually drop what we call soul tokens. And when we made the towers such soft targets, we were worried like people are going to be scared to peel off and go into the jungle. So we decided to make the jungler kind of a firefighter and aggressor. So if you kill a camp, you'll get a little soul token. And if what the soul token can do is you can target near any tower, and you can warp in a Yeti. And if you kill the big monster, you can warp in like a Yeti chieftain. And they're really tough. They're roughly around the toughness of an ogre. So as you're doing your jungle pattern, you see a tower that's about to go down, you can drop 4 or 5 Yetis and really you can kind of keep an eye on your teammates. Or you can say, hey, they just killed that guy in that lane. You can drop 7 or 8 Yetis and just make a huge surge. So the jungling we have out there, we feel is actually a lot more strategic, has a lot more options than the traditional jungling you're used to. So hopefully you'll still be able to strike some fear into the hearts of your enemies.
All right, awesome. Thanks.
That is all the time that we have. Please give our panelists a round of applause.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Coming up next at the developer stage is the panel for StarCraft II, Heart of the Swarm, Arts and Tech.